Welcome. In this episode we'll be discussing Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion, Book 1, Chapter 5, Section 9. This selection is taken from the 1559 edition, published at Geneva in 1618, that particular printing. Let's take a look. Sed ut illum in suis operibus contemplemur, quibus se propinquum nobis familiaremque reddit, ac quodam modo communicat, quo respici ebat apostolus, cum dicaret non longe, quaeritandum esse, quippe qui praesentissima sua virtute habitet, in uno quoque nostrum. Now we begin here somewhat without the previous context, but you remember that prior to this section, Calvin was talking about how we ought not to look for the essence of the Lord, but we ought to rather worship and adore it. He now begins with this purpose clause. But, in order that, and the ut takes here contemplemur. Now this is a subjunctive from the first conjugation verb contemplor, contemplare, and you notice that it is deponent. In other words, it has only passive forms and it has active meanings. But so that we might, it's first plural, we might contemplate or consider him, illum here is the object of contemplemur, we might consider him in suis operibus, in his own works. Works quibus, by which, this abbreviation is for quibus, and this is the ablative plural, rather the neuter plural ablative. I always try to use gender, number, and case in that order just for consistency. And the antecedent of quibus is operibus, which is neuter and plural. We might contemplate him in his own works, the works by which reddit, he makes himself, se reddit, he makes himself propinquum nobis familiaremque. He makes himself close to us and intimate, familiar, and quodam modo, this long ablative of means here, neuter singular ablative, and in a certain fashion communicat, shares himself. The object of communicat is se, just like se is the object of reddit. He renders himself, makes himself close and familiar to us, and he shares himself with us in a certain fashion. Calvin continues, the apostle, and he means Paul, from Acts 17, was looking at, respiciebat, this fact, had regard for this, cum dicaret, when he said that. Now this cum here is actually cum. Different times in the history of Latin this was spelled in two ways, once as a preposition and then again differently as a conjunction. When he said that, God, quaeritandum esse, is not to be sought. This is a passive periphrastic gerundive with a form of sum here in indirect discourse. When he said that God is not to be sought, quaeritandum esse, far off, inasmuch as he, quippe qui, dwells praesentissima sua virtute, by his ever-present power, in uno quoque, in each one of us, nostrum. Nostrum is the partitive genitive, and habitet, of course, here is subjunctive in this qui clause, which is dependent in turn on the indirect statement of dicaret. Please join us next time for more Calvin.